Hey guys! So, is honey vegan? First, if you've not seen the prior video, the one I did on insects and pain, please watch that one first, since this one does build on that one. So in yesterday's video, I concluded that veganism is really about reducing suffering. And while we don't know if bugs suffer if they feel pain, it is the most moral option to treat them as though they do. So please keep that in mind for the rest of this video, as I will treat insects as though they do suffer. Again, realistically, we don't really know for sure. Again, if you didn't see the video prior, the insect pain video, please go watch that one first. So what does all this mean for honey? Well, at first glance, it seems pretty obvious, right? Vegan means no animals, no animal byproducts, and clearly honey comes from an animal, it comes from bees, so honey is not vegan. But again, ethical veganism is really about reducing suffering. So the question really becomes, does eating honey cause suffering? I'm not sure. If you Google, honey, vegan, you'll find a lot of pages from biased organizations like PETA that have a lot of pretty awful things to say about beekeeping and honey production. Queen bees will have their wings clipped, their wings cut so that they can't leave the hive. And before winter, some beekeepers will just burn the hives and the bees alive just to get rid of them instead of keeping them over the winter. First, I couldn't find much evidence for these claims beyond what was presented by PETA and other obviously biased sources. According to honeybeesweet.com, clipping the queen's wings is done, but it's not done nearly as often anymore. And there was a thread at beesource.com that I found that included input from a few beekeepers who did not clip wings, they marked them instead. But let's say that PETA's depiction of modern day commercial honey production is accurate. Does this necessarily mean that all honey production causes such suffering? According to numerous small beekeepers, no. According to one vegan beekeeper named Will Curley, you can be vegan and still consume honey. Not all honey is cruelly produced, nor is all honey ethically produced. The important thing is that some beekeepers consistently put their bees and the health of the environment first. And I agree with Will on a theoretical level because, again, for me, it's about suffering. If no suffering occurs by consuming honey, then why would I have a problem with it? It's the same position that I hold on drinking cow's milk or eating eggs. If it can be guaranteed that the animals do not suffer as a result of you doing that, then I have no problem with it. Now, I say theoretical because I really don't know if this is actually possible. I'm not a farmer, I'm not a beekeeper, I've never even been close to a cow or a chicken. I really have very limited knowledge regarding how bees are kept or how cows are kept or rearing chickens because number one, I have no interest in caring for these animals, and number two, I have no interest in consuming their products. But if I wanted to consume milk or eggs, it would be my moral responsibility to make sure that no suffering comes about because of that. And if I couldn't ensure that, then I shouldn't support it. And that's how I feel about honey. I don't personally consume it because I really don't much care for it. But if I wanted to consume it, then I would make sure that it came from an ethical source. I would meet the beekeeper and visit their farm. And if I couldn't do that, then I wouldn't support it. All this to say, I see no problem with consuming ethically produced honey. It may not be technically vegan given the strict definition of vegan, but I don't really care. I care about reducing suffering, not semantics. As the non-profit Vegan Outreach points out, if vegans are going to follow a technical or scientific definition of animal, then sponges are included. Though considered animals, sponges lack true tissues and have no nervous system. They cannot feel pain or suffer any more than plants. So what would be the point of including sponges in a vegan definition of animal? I also care about helping others learn about reducing suffering so that they can change their behaviors and so that suffering is actually reduced. And I'm just not sure focusing on honey is the best way to do that. As Dr. Michael Greger from nutritionfacts.org once wrote, "I'm afraid that our public avoidance of honey is hurting us as a movement. A certain number of bees are undeniably killed by honey production, but far more insects are killed, for example, in sugar production. we probably kill more bugs driving to the grocery store to get some honey-sweetened product than are killed in the product's production. No wonder veganism can seem nonsensical to the average person. We have this kind of magical thinking. We feel good about ourselves as if it were actually helping the animals, obsessing about where some trace ingredient comes from, when in fact it may have the opposite effect. We may be hurting animals by making veganism seem more like petty, dogmatic self-flagellation. If we choose to avoid honey, fine. Let's just not make a huge production of it and force everybody to do the same if they want to join the club. Vegan outreach comes to the same conclusion. If one is concerned about doing harm to insects, it's not clear that the production of honey involves any more pain for insects than the production of most vegetables or alternative sweeteners, since the harvesting and transportation of all crops involves some insect deaths. On the other hand, entomologist Jeffrey Lockwood thinks that treating insects as though they feel pain cultivates an attitude of respect toward living organisms, and this seems like a good thing. We learn methods of dissection through practice, and we also learn virtues such as compassion through practice. Perhaps we become overly careful in our actions by including animals that aren't sentient, but a world that is more mindful of other beings than is strictly necessary is okay with me. He's specifically speaking about insects for research, dissection here, but I think we can apply it to honey as well. Treating insects as though they suffer, by extension, kind of forces us to look critically at honey production. All this to say, I think that honey can be vegan, can be ethical, but it really depends. I also do worry that focusing on the suffering of bees could potentially turn people off of veganism on the whole, but I also think that it could be beneficial in the long run. Bees like bees, you got it. I think what it really comes down to is presentation. Coming at people with bees are people too, and you eat honey, you're stealing from bees. It just makes you look crazy. It just does. On the other hand, I think presenting a more rational argument, something that I've tried to do here to the best of my ability, and staying calm and non-judgmental, I think could potentially have better results. Lots of coulds and maybes and potentially and perhaps and I don't knows in this video. But that's okay. That's what this is about. You know, I think we all want to have the absolute perfect right answer, and we don't always have that, even concerning vegan issues. And I think it's really important to be upfront about that and to be honest and rational. So that's it. That's my video on honey. I hope it was everything you ever could have dreamed of. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this issue. It's really, really interesting to me, and there's a lot of different things to discuss, I think. And I'd also like to hear your take on discussing honey with other people, especially non-vegans, and just the vegan movement in general and the whole position on honey and the whole vitriol I see with people saying, oh, you eat honey, well, you're not vegan, and you know, this kind of vegan status thing. I'd love to hear about that too, so please leave that in the comments. And if you enjoyed this kind of thing, please subscribe. It's a really cool thing that you can do. It's a way that you can support me. And of course, you want to share my stuff, that's great too. And if you want to like the video, that's really cool too, if you like it, obviously. Or if you don't like it, I don't really care. Do either one. And yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will have a new video very soon.